Hey, I'm Bob at I Like to Make Stuff. Today, we're going to talk about putting a laser in your wood shop. And I know a lot of people have already made up their minds that they don't want to have a laser or a CNC router in their wood shop, and that's totally fine. But if you've been on the fence about it, we're going to talk about why it can make your shop way better and make you more money. Many years ago, I bought my first laser, and it's a Glowforge. I've still got it, it still works great, but there are a few things about it that I'm not really crazy about. One, it's not very big, so you can only cut a certain amount of stuff. You have about this much area. Another thing is that the software, while simple and easy to use, is web-based, so you can only use the machine if you've got an internet connection. That's not great. And then a few years later, I needed to upgrade, so I bought this full spectrum laser. Now this thing is 90 watt, has a much bigger area. It has a pass-through, so you can take an entire sheet and push it through here. But the software on this machine runs on the machine, so you physically have to be connected to this machine, and you don't get software updates unless you go out, get them, and install them on the machine. So now we've upgraded from this one to a Thunder laser. Just to be totally transparent, we are partnering with Thunder Lasers, so they did send us this machine. This is the Nova 51 by Thunder Laser, and this thing is massive. It is seriously big, plus you can put an entire sheet through it. Now the big improvement of this one over the last one is that it's 130 watts. With the right tip, you can actually cut through 3/4 inch plywood on this laser. Another thing that I really like about this one in particular is that it uses Lightburn, which is a separate piece of software made by a company that updates it. It's inexpensive and it's very easy to use. So in this video, what I want to do is show you this machine, but also talk about why it's time to add a laser of whatever kind to your shop. So the four things I want to talk about in this video are how lasers can save you time, how they can make you money, how they can add capability to your shop, and yes, we are going to talk about the cost of these machines. So the first thing is how they can save you time.
So I make a lot of projects here at I Like to Make Stuff that don't get seen on camera. And a lot of those are prototyped here in this room using these lasers. Now it allows me to be able to take an idea and really quickly bring it out into the real world, like this desktop arcade that I've been working on. Something like this was a fun idea that we were able to bring together, and to have the tab and slot tolerance on this, I really need a laser to be able to get that amount of quality. Now prototyping things like this is so fast and efficient using a laser. I can model it in Fusion 360 like we do all of our projects, click a couple buttons and the laser starts making it. Now once I'm able to be happy with my prototype, I can then make real life versions. And once I'm happy with this real life version, I can batch out so many of these. Rather than me making one, it can make 10 in that same amount of time. Now the automation that is inherent in a laser is so much more precise than I can be with any tool that I have in my traditional shop. The time-saving effort, the rapid prototyping, the it can make 10 when I can make one is such a valuable tool that I don't have in my workshop. So by adding a laser in that space opens up my ability to make more money, to save more time, and to make a lot cooler stuff than I would have been able to make otherwise.
Josh mentioned making money, and that's good because that's the next thing we need to talk about. The whole point of having a laser in your shop is to make cool things, but also to be able to make more money when you sell those things. So let's talk about a few of the different ways that you can make money with a laser. Now, one of the most common things that you're going to hear is people making unique objects. In the case of the arcade, all of those pieces were cut on the laser and all out of the same material, but you can combine different materials to make different objects. For instance, jewelry is a fantastic thing that you can make on a laser. Now, you're not necessarily going to cut down pieces of metal for jewelry, but you can cut down pieces of wood and leather and then connect them together with different little metal clasps and hooks to make earrings and necklaces and bracelets and cuffs and all sorts of awesome stuff that is unique. And of course, no matter what the object is or what material it's using, it can be a unique design to you, but then you can use the laser to make 20 or 30 of them. You only have to design it one time. So if you want to sell those in bulk, you can totally do it, and you can make even more money by customizing them. And when it comes to customization, there's also a bunch of different ways that you can do that. If you make a unique item, before you sell it to an individual, you can customize it on the spot with the laser, or you can actually just buy things off the shelf and customize those. So imagine that you go to Target or some other store like that and you buy some cutting boards. You can take those cutting boards back to your laser, customize them with a logo or with a name and sell them to someone directly, or You can just put cool designs on them to make them more unique and then sell them to a broad audience. Now we can actually prove that adding a customization to an object will make you more money. I went to Etsy and looked around at a bunch of different objects, but one that really stuck out to me were these nice looking but really simple walnut boxes. And it was $25 to add a laser engraved name or logo to the top of the box. Now, definitely it does not cost you $25 to add that, so it's a significant amount of profit on top of the object itself. There are tons of different examples on Etsy where customizing something will actually make you a lot of money per item, and then if you sell a bunch of those items, you're making a lot more money. This is all leading to be able to pay off the machine that you've purchased. So, how do you figure out what to make and where to sell it? A good rule of thumb when you're trying to develop a product is to look for gaps in a market. So let's say that you're into Hot Wheels and you need a way to display a whole bunch of these little bitty cars. Well, look for how other people do it and look for where there's a gap in that market that you can design something to fill. So maybe you come up with some sort of a really nice looking display for a bunch of cars or a way to display a really special car. You can start to design that thing to sell. And then of course you can customize it with the name of the car or the person or whoever that you're selling it to. But that's just one example of looking for a gap in a market and designing something to fill that gap. So another way to do this is to look for opportunities to serve somebody that you're already working with. Maybe you've already got a client or people that you already know. Like for instance, let's say that you sell flowers. And you have people that buy flowers from you all the time, but those people also may need gifts to give with those flowers or some sort of a little card to go with those flowers. That's another need that they might have and you've already got an attachment to them, so make something to help those people. So no matter what you come up with, you still have to figure out where to sell it. Of course, there's a million different ways and places to sell things, but here are some ideas to help you get started. One is a craft show. It's a great place for you to make something by hand, show it to another person in person, face to face. They get to hold it and see it, and then they get to walk away with it. Now that doesn't have a huge scale, and if you want to sell a whole lot more of something, you're going to need to go somewhere like Etsy. If you don't have personal experience, Etsy was specifically made as a marketplace for handmade goods. Now that's kind of the truth these days, but either way, it has a huge reach, and it's a great opportunity for you to sell the stuff that you make. Another cool local option is a local store, like a boutique. These people often love to resell locally made goods, and so they're looking for people in their area that hand make something, and this can work in a couple of different ways. One, through consignment, where you put your stuff in their store and then you make money when they sell it. The other option is often wholesale. Well, they'll pay you up front a discounted rate to buy stuff from you that they can sell at a retail price. Either way, it's a great way to get stuff that you've made into the hands of people that live near you. When it comes to selling things, the last little tip I've got for you as to where to sell them is to look where you're already involved. For us, we have a bunch of kids on different soccer teams, and a bunch of the parents on those soccer teams actually use lasers and screen printing to make goods to sell to other parents. In our groups, a lot of the things that get sold between parents are tumblers and t-shirts and coasters, and not all those things are made out of wood. The laser allows you to work in a bunch of different materials, and for that, we need to talk about its capabilities.
So like Bob said, you can cut an array of materials on the laser cutter. You can engrave things like wood, you can cut through most of these to make cool projects, but you can also do stuff that you might not think of, like cardboard. For that arcade we made earlier, I also made packaging. And I was able to make this custom made through Fusion 360 into the laser with like cool integrated zippers. I couldn't do stuff like that in my shop. So there's materials that we use on the laser I didn't even know about until we got the laser. Stuff like engravable plastics, so it looks like wood and looks like metal, and you can make really cool signs super easily by engraving straight into these. I always assumed lasers were super powerful, can melt through just about anything, but you can also cut very delicate things like paper. You can make wedding invitations, birthday invitations, specialty cards by dialing down the intensity and making very detailed, intricate cuts like this. And lastly, the array of materials is so crazy that every time I go out to a store, I can look at a piece of material and go, I can burn that with the laser. Just like rugs. So we decided to sell these in our store because I saw one of these at the store and it was blank and I said, I wanted to say something cool. I can put it in a laser and I can do that. Lasers can take a lot of materials that you may not have thought of and made really custom items very simply. Now, just like certain materials I would not cut with my woodworking tools in my shop, you shouldn't cut certain things on a laser. Acrylics, clear plastics, some of them are really good, some of them are really not good. Things like ABS and PVC you don't want to introduce into a laser because it can cause really terrible fumes and you don't want that. So make sure you do your research as to what you can cut and what you can't cut with the laser cutter. While many of the tools in my wood shop are very precise, A lot of them are really good at cutting straight lines. The laser cutter can cut curves, it can cut precise angles a lot better than I can with any of the very expensive tools I currently have in my wood shop. Now let's talk about safety, comparing a laser to my traditional shop. My son needed some elements for a school project, and he was able to design things and cut them out here on the laser with minimal supervision and really minimal risk. Compared to him going into my wood shop, I would have to teach him how to use things. He would be pretty scared of the loud spinning death blades. And so to compare safety with the laser and the wood shop, I would be a lot more comfortable allowing him to use that tool by himself than any of the tools in my shop. Now, I know what you're thinking. Them two dudes are ignoring the very obvious fact that no one has mentioned yet. These big machines cost money.
And we're going to talk about the actual cost of these things versus what you get for that money. Josh has a 7-watt laser on his CNC at home, and it cost almost $700. A 7-watt laser is not really going to do that much for you, just some basic engraving. At my house, I bought a Glowforge, which was $6,000 at the time, now is almost $7,000, and it's a 45-watt laser. It's a pretty good machine, but the software is cloud-based, you have to be on the internet to use it, and it has a limited size. Then, after that, I bought this full spectrum laser. This thing was almost $13,000 when I got it, 90 watts. But again, the software is a pretty big problem. You have to physically be connected to this machine to be able to design the stuff that you want to work on. That's not great. Then we upgraded to what I think is the super laser, our Thunder laser. Now this is a fantastic machine with tons of additional options and functionality that the other ones just can't hang with. It's 130 watts, which means you can cut through pretty much anything you want, and if you need to cut through 3/4 inch plywood, you can do that with an additional lens. Now on top of that, you can actually mount a camera on the inside of this thing, and Thunder Laser as a company is really great to deal with. They give you lifetime support, and you don't have to pay shipping when you get one of these giant things. In addition to all the fantastic hardware you get to deal with, you can use Lightburn, which is a fantastic piece of software that works on a bunch of different machines. And you can do that on any computer, get your design work done, get all your preparation done, and then put it on the machine to cut it. But you may be asking, how much was this laser? Well, it was over $13,000, which I agree is like a used car, but I want to prove to you that you could actually pay this thing off pretty easily. Josh has an idea for this.
I went on Etsy to try to find a book nook, and each one was like $60. And all it is really thin material that goes on a bookshelf and has like a whimsical interior. I designed one of these in Fusion 360, cut it out on the Thunder laser, and I can mass produce these.
And so each one of these is $2 or $3 in material.
Yep.
This is 3mm MDF, just MDF. It's very inexpensive to get and easy to make. Now, if you were to profit on each one of these, let's say $40 a piece, which is absolutely reasonable.
That's very conservative.
You would have to sell 325 on Etsy or some other marketplace to completely pay off this machine. So it is absolutely doable when you take into consideration all the different options we talked about before of places that you can sell the stuff. And this is just one product. It would be very easy to come up with several products to make your money back really quickly. But before you actually invest in any of these machines, I want to give you a suggestion. Make sure that you spend the time finishing your designs. Get your products ready and look for those holes in the different markets that you can fill with your own solutions, and get all that ready, then buy the laser. So you're not sitting on a machine worried about the cost for a long time. If you've got all your designs ready, as soon as you get the machine, it can start making money. All right, so when it comes down to it, I think that having a laser in your shop is a great way to add capability, and it can pay for itself. I would imagine when you bought your table saw or your miter saw, you probably didn't quite understand how that tool would specifically make you money, but you bought it anyway because it's a part of the shop. Well, a laser is part of the shop, but can specifically make you profit, and that's a pretty awesome thing. I think I've made my case to whether a laser is worthwhile having in your shop, and some of you still may not agree, and that's totally fine, but we should definitely talk about it down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Now it's time for bloopers. Depending on the object and the level of customization, handmade goods on Etsy. I'm gonna start over. The object itself and the level of customization that, I did it again. I went looking. Now we can prove that adding this level of customization will actually, I did it again. Dang it, farts. Okay, ready?